Thank you, Mr. President. I want to refer to the three topics that have been raised the most here. The first one is, of course, our budget and MFF. The second one is Brexit, and the third one is the Western Balkan. So first of all, what the budget is concerned, I think, dear Prime Minister, it is very important that Croatia and the presidency convinces the Council to stick to its own strategic agenda. Because, and I'm emphasizing this because we need the modernization of the budget. Why this? The budget we have right now has been agreed on in 2013. You remember the year 2013 because it was the year when Croatia joined the European Union. The world was completely different. In the year 2013, we did not have any idea of Daesh. It was existing already, but we didn't know anything of it. There hasn't been the migration crisis yet. Russia had not annexed the Crimea and had not started yet the hybrid war in the Ukraine. At that time, we had no Paris Climate Agreement. We were not speaking of 5G or artificial intelligence. So these few highlights show the world is completely different. And therefore, we do need a completely different budget. That means modernization. And one message from my part, and I think I have the support of the Parliament there. If the overall ceiling is too low, if the budget in itself is too small, the only way out are own new resources on the European level. And there is an opportunity to introduce that with the emission trading system, because the revenues of the emission trading system will grow. So we will not take anything away from the member states. On the contrary, they'll have more. But we can also allocate on the European level the revenues from the emission trading system to serve the European Green Deal. Second topic is indeed Brexit. Your presidency comes at a crucial time for the Brexit negotiations because we have to make enormous progress. This is decisive till the summer, till the end of your presidency. And here we have to decide on, or it's the UK's choice to decide on how close or how distant they want to be from the European Union, but that also means from the single market. So in other terms, you cannot have no free movement and then expect to have no free movement for people, and then expect to have free movement for goods, capital or services. It's either all four have a free movement or none of this is possible. You cannot accept to have a level playing field if there's a huge divergence in taxation or social standards or environmental standards. So it is the choice of the UK how far they want to align or diverge, but this is decisive for how good the access to the single market will be or not. In short, it's the old proverb, you cannot have the cake and eat it at the same time. And the very last point, the Western Balkans. Ich glaube, für das Thema des Westbalkans, wir dürfen nicht unterschätzen, es ist in unserem strategischen Interesse, dass der Westbalkan so nah wie möglich bei uns ist. Wir sollten nicht unterschätzen, wie stark China bereits präsent ist, wie stark Russland dort präsent ist, wie stark die Türkei dort präsent ist, alle mit der Intention, den Westbalkan und die Staaten des Westbalkans so stark wie irgendwie möglich auf ihre Seite zu ziehen. Es ist in unserem Interesse, sie so nah wie möglich an uns heranzubekommen. Und deshalb mit dem Blick auf Nordmazedonien und Albanien, wir haben viel von ihnen verlangt. Nordmazedonien musste seinen Namen wechseln, um die Möglichkeit zu haben, die Beitrittsgespräche mit der Europäischen Union zu eröffnen. Und ich glaube, wir können es schaffen, einerseits den Beitrittsprozess zu modernisieren, aber andererseits auch treu im Wort zu bleiben zu dem, was wir Nordmazedonien und Albanien gesagt haben. Es ist in unserem Interesse und in diesem Sinne wünsche ich Ihnen alles Gute für die Präsidentschaft.
Presidente von der Leyen, adesso la parola al Primo Ministro Plenkovic. Prego, Andrej.
Grazie, Davide. Ladies and gentlemen, dear President, first of all, thank you for many reactions, many suggestions, many different points of view on the current priorities of the Croatian presidency, but also on some ideas how you believe we should tackle the most important political and legislative dossiers which are on the agenda. Let me say a few points at the end in order to try to collectively touch some of the matters that you have raised. First of all, what is the philosophy of our first ever presidency of the Council? We are a bit of a symbol and a signal. I said at the beginning, only 30 years of democracy, 28 years of international recognition, 7th year of membership. Still catching up with those who are more developed, those who were in the Union from the start, or those who joined, like our neighbours from Central and Eastern Europe, in 2004 and 2007. One of the MEPs, Mr. Krah, I think, he mentioned first Croatian President Tudjman and tried to interpret his doctrine. I dare to say that I might know a little bit better what is the legacy of the first Croatian president and what he wanted for Croatia once we gained our sovereignty for the future and the perspective. It was actually him, 30 years ago, on the 30th of May, in the first democratically composed Croatian parliament, who said that the European integration is the way to go. And everything we have done in the last 3 decades has been the implementation of this objective. We know what sovereignty means. We know what it means, unlike any other country which is present in this hemicycle. What does it mean to have occupied territory? What does it mean to have a war on your territory? What does it mean to have more than 16,000 people killed in your own country almost at the end of the 20th century? We have that experience vivid, and we know that Europe is a project of peace and cooperation and reconciliation. And that's how we address our political responsibility today. This is very important to note. Second, we have taken into account the strategic agenda, the trio programme, the programme of the new Commission and our own programme. Everything that we have put as priorities is very realistic. And therefore, on some of the items, we know that the climate change and the climate neutral objective until 2015 will be a driver of our economic transformation. It will become for economy what human rights are embedded in our foreign policy. And this is what we agreed with the Commission in Zagreb last week. We shall help to address this issue so as to take into account the different state of play of our industries, our financial capability, our budgetary capabilities, in order to go in the same direction, but not to have negative economic consequences. Second, on the dossier of migration, which many of you have mentioned, I will say once again, and I repeat this with full understanding, that this is crucial what we must do in the months ahead of us. We had the arrangement with Turkey that has managed to put down the numbers of the illegal migration on the Eastern Mediterranean and Western Balkans route compared to 2015-16 data by 98%. 98% down. These are the numbers which we have now compared to 5 years ago, only to 2%. How shall we tackle this? Jointly. We speak about Frontex of 10,000 border police. My country proportionally perhaps has more border police than any other, 6,500. I hear some statements and allegations which in the reports which you read or the rumours you hear are almost to become a fact. They are not. Whenever there was an allegation, there was an investigation. There were some disciplinary measures. There is a strong surveillance within our police to prevent any violation of human rights or any behaviour which would be contravening our own law, European standards or international conventions. This is how we shall behave. But I repeat once again, unlike many other member states, we have said no barbed wire between two friendly neighbouring countries such as Croatia and Bosnia and Herzegovina. And we will not erect fences between the nations which are friendly, which will always be together as we were together in the past. And moreover, we said clearly, we will not erect fences between parts of the Bosnian and Herzegovina border where Croats live as constituent people in Bosnia and Herzegovina and Croats on the other side of the border. This will simply not happen. This is our policy, and we will stay behind it. But what we want to do is jointly address the problem, either at the source or at the first point of entry. Croatian-Bosnian Herzegovina border is not the first point of entry of migratory waves. Let's be very clear about it. This is important to note. On budget, the stakes are high. We understood the message of we can't do more with less finances available. That's very clear. But we need to find a common consensus if we are to embark on the new own resources. By many analyses, by many reports of very able people in a number of years behind us, this might seem the only way to address, as Ursula says, the modernisation expectations of what we can finance jointly. This is key. On demography, if there is one element, political, which I would like to be as a legacy of Croatia in these 6 months, and also together with the Commission, and given that Dubravka has this expressis verbis portfolio, first time ever in the history of the European Union, because we feel this is an existential question for the European Union, for almost half of our member states who do have a negative natural growth, such as my country. I think a set of tools with great sensitiveness of the President of the Commission, who knows in her previous roles how important this issue is, how we can combine policy measures which have proved to be efficient in other countries, how we can offer them to those that have a difficulty. This is the idea. Depopulation from less developed countries to more developed, from rural areas to urban areas. These are our common problems, and we should address them jointly. On the Western Balkans and the issue of enlargement, we are not naive. We are not unrealistic. I know more perhaps than anybody, since I've been dealing with this issue for almost 30 years, that the level of enthusiasm that the West, with the open hands, has offered to the Central and Eastern European countries in the 90s will never happen again to those who would like to join. But what we need to do is intelligently structure the process for the next 10 years, to steer this process, to pilot it, to give an ambitious agenda for those who want to reform, transform and attain the standards that we have in the European Union. This is the idea behind the summit that we want to organise in Zagreb. And therefore I say, for those who are afraid of saying yes to the opening of the intergovernmental conference with Albania and North Macedonia, we know it. It's a complex, legal process with so many possibilities to either suspend or to reverse or to ask more or to build another requirement in this exercise, that it is just a start of a marathon. It's not a senseless fuite en avant. We have to be clear about it. The enlargement doesn't happen overnight. It happens after years of long reform process and careful scrutiny by the Commission and the input of the Member States. In that respect, I don't want any of the countries in our neighbourhood to be forgotten, especially Bosnia and Herzegovina, who is strategic for my country. I would also mention Ukraine, because you mentioned it, Ursula, now. I think in the context of the Eastern Partnership and everything we had dealt from 2013 and 14 until now, we should adequately address their own ambitions for the territorial integrity, but also for their reforms and the European perspective which we should support. One word on Brexit. I see that Michel is here and this topic is just after our debate. I think the most important element in the last 3.5 years was the unity of the 27. We remained united, with full solidarity extended, especially to the most concerned countries such as Ireland. In the 11 months ahead of us, with an intelligently drafted and crafted negotiated framework, I think we can attain a good agreement as a starting point for future relations. We should not pretend that in an unprecedented situation we can solve with the first contractual relations everything we'd like to do in the future after the divorce that is happening literally in 3 weeks. And therefore we will help you as the Council on the proposal of the Commission to find the right balance for the completion in the months to come. Finally, I just want to reiterate that all of our services, all of our ministers, government, MEPs who are here, and I thank them for their contributions, will be at your disposal to have a good dialogue together and to reach compromises. This is one of the objectives of European democracy. This is the role of the European Parliament. This is the role of the Member States within the Council, and also the facilitating and the leadership role that the European Commission has. I thank you very much, dear President, for this opportunity, for having been with you here today in Strasbourg again, and as you many said, my friends, which is a very dear institution to me. Thank you.
Grazie al Primo Ministro Plenkovic, naturalmente auguri per il suo lavoro e auguri a tutta la sua squadra di governo per questo periodo così importante per l'Unione Europea. La discussione su questo punto è chiusa.